Hyundai's N Performance division is definitely going electric in the future. There is already solid evidence that an Ioniq 5N is currently under development, and you can bet that the upcoming Ioniq 6 sedan will also probably get that treatment as well when that car does eventually roll out. But that doesn't mean we still can't have fun with the gasoline-powered models that Hyundai still offers here in North America. One of the latest ones in that bunch is the Elantra N that I've got right next to me, but I've also brought along the one that started it all here in North America. This is my very own personal 2019 Hyundai Veloster N. Let's see if that Elantra N over there improved upon this formula that put Hyundai on the map essentially for enthusiasts that wanted to have fun and go fast in their daily drivers. Now, to preface, my Veloster N did not come with the performance package because at the time that was an optional upgrade. It included things like larger 19-inch wheels, better brakes, variable exhaust, and a limited slip differential. Now all three N models in the United States have all those features standard. There is no performance package. But the other thing that was different at the time was the 6-speed manual that this car has was the only transmission available. Now you can get the 8-speed wet dual clutch in both cars, and that's exactly what I've got in the Elantra N today. The Elantra is a compact sedan. At 184.1 inches long, the only sedan longer than it in its segment is the Volkswagen Jetta GLI. Now, compared to the Veloster N over there, which is a subcompact hatchback, this is 16 inches longer in overall length and has a 3-inch longer wheelbase. So dynamically, there are some notable differences that I will definitely cover when we get to the drive portion. Hyundai really blacked out a lot of this front end to differentiate it from the other Elantra models and give it just a more aggressive overall look. In photos, I originally wasn't a fan of how intense it looks, but now having had it for a week in person, I have to say the look is growing on me. Let me know in the comments below what you think of it. I will say I think I still prefer the Elantra N Lines front end compared to this, but let me know what you think. No matter which color you choose, you're going to get red accents along the front and the sides and the back, which I think adds a nice little bit of flair. And you'll get these functional air curtains on the side to help cool the brakes and improve aerodynamics. Around the corner here, you'll notice Hyundai gave the window surround and this accent feature right here a gloss black finish. Otherwise, you'll get a matte finish on all the other Elantra models. Even the N-Line Elantra gets matte black. I think this looks a lot better. These are the standard 19-inch rims with the N Performance brakes on them that run on Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires that are 245mm wide and 35mm thick. That's a lot wider than the Veloster N over there, which only rides on 225 width tires. But fun fact, those 18-inch wheels that were standard in 2019 and 2020 also rode on Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, but now all Veloster Ns ride on 19-inch rims, but those tires are Pirelli P0s. Now onto my personal favorite angle of this car, the rear end. We've got a spoiler here that's black and not too large, not too small. Down below, the rear diffuser houses the dual tailpipes that are massive and create incredible noises out of both of these cars. Now the taillights are partial LED. The turn signals, as you can see, are incandescent, but Hyundai does give you the full width light bar that makes the H shape, and it looks really, really cool at night. I also love how the lights get more of a dark accent to them to give them an even sportier look. Now I totally agree with Alex here. I think if I were to buy an Elantra N, the first thing I would do would be to move the N logo over there on the right and put it smack dab in the center of the name Elantra to make it a much cleaner and more unique look. Though this is a performance sedan, Hyundai did equip it with a ton of active safety features standard, including things like forward collision warning with pedestrian detection, lane departure warning, lane follow assist, blind spot monitors, safe exit assist, rear cross traffic alert, rear parking sensors. However, they did leave out one thing, and that is adaptive cruise control. Just like the other N models, under the hood you'll find a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that puts out 276 horsepower and 289 pound-feet of torque. However, the Veloster N only makes 275 horsepower, which is just one fewer. However, mine is unique in the fact that it makes even less, because back in 2019 and 2020, the only way to get 275 horsepower was with that performance package. But now that it's standard across the line, they all make 275. You have two transmission choices, a 6-speed manual transmission with automatic rev matching for downshifts, as well as a new 8-speed wet dual clutch automatic transmission. What's the benefit of it being a wet transmission? Well, they say it's for longevity as well as more aggressive shifting, which is exactly what you'll experience in this car. And just like with the others, it's only front-wheel drive. Front seat comfort is going to vary depending on your body type. For Alex and myself, the seats are just perfectly fine. They're very aggressively bolstered though, especially in the sides and upper back area. So definitely sit in one of these before you pull the trigger. I will say there's also no adjustable lumbar support, so this is what you get. For me, it's perfectly fine, but for other people, it might not be ideal. And then these are not powered seats. There is just height adjustability forward and backwards, as well as tilting to the seat back. That's about it. Of the three N models, this is definitely the one you're going to want to get if you haul more than 2 passengers frequently, because this back seat is generously sized. I've got 4 to 5 inches of knee room left, plenty of foot space under the seat, and just overall space is very accommodating for a 5'9" person. I feel like you could be a couple of inches taller than me and still have headroom. I've got 3 to 5 inches above my head right now, but in the center seat, I still have maybe 2 to 3. This seat is not too much higher than the outboard positions, and the floor hump is not that big, so it's not gonna really intrude. So I think in a pinch, you could have 3 people back here and be just fine. And rear-facing child seats would also be perfectly fine back here. The only omission is there are no air vents back here, so you're gonna have to rely on the airflow coming from up front. Also, there are no seat back pockets because these N light bucket seats just don't have them. It's more of a hard shell back here, but you know, not the end of the world. Trunk space is also the Elantra's forte. We got 14 cubic feet of space back here. That rivals some mid-sized sedans and even some larger sedans. The only difference between this and a normal Elantra is the fact that we have a red brace back here for more rigidity. Of course, that is appropriate for what kind of car this is. Under the floor here, no spare tire, but we have some fix-a-flat kits and a jack. You could probably put a spare tire back here if you got one aftermarket. Hyundai also gives you these pull tabs right here on either side of the trunk so you can fold down the 60/40 split second row. However, when you pull on it, it doesn't immediately fold them down, it just releases them. You'll still have to go around and push them down yourself. Do keep in mind that that 14 cubic feet of space in the trunk will be impeded somewhat by these gooseneck style hinges for the trunk lid. Taking a look around the interior, all Elantra ends look like this on the inside, save for the fact that if you get a manual transmission, of course you'll have a manual shifter there. And if you get the manual transmission, you do not get this standard size moonroof with the manual shade. I think that's a little bit of a missed opportunity because I personally would love to get the manual, but I also really love sunroofs, so it's sad that you don't have the option for both. Over here on the seats, these are the N light bucket seats. These are new. The Veloster now has these as well. Mine did not come with these seats. They were added in the 2021 model year. It's all one racing inspired seat, so the headrest does not adjust. It's all one piece, and that N logo there, it does illuminate at night and it looks very cool. In the center, we have this sort of faux micro suede insert, and then this is a leather-like material. I'm not sure if it's real leather, but it does kind of feel like it. And then over on the door panel and the pillar over there, we've got height adjustable seat belts. And then on the door itself, a mixture of materials. The door handle is a solid sort of metal feel to it. And then the actual armrest has a softer feel. Up top here where these slash marks are is more of that micro suede material. The speaker grille right here, this really small tweeter style, does kind of remind me of a Mercedes-Benz unit, but it's not nearly as high quality, of course. The rest of the dashboard over here is a hard touch material up top. And yeah, this is hard too, but I do like the horizontal element you get right there that connects the air vents. And down below on the door panel, we have more speaker grille. It doesn't have really any style to it other than that sort of polygonal pattern. These are Bose speakers, and then a relatively small sort of water bottle holder slash map pocket down there on the right. The glove compartment is generously sized. You could fit a small tablet in there if you wanted to. Up here we have a command center with lights for the passenger and the driver, as well as the controls for the moonroof, lights, as well as your SOS function for emergency services. And then the dashboard down here is a much cooler look than when you get in the Veloster. This is a much sportier feel. I love this sort of grab handle they give you right here. I have had passengers complain that it feels like it separates the driver and passenger too much. If it's just you driving, this is a very cool feel and a very sort of cockpit vibe. Now up top we have the 10.25-inch infotainment display over here on the right, as well as the 10.25-inch instrument cluster. Over on the right, this is the latest, the latest iteration of Hyundai's infotainment. The only problem is that means it does not have wireless CarPlay or Android Auto. You'll have to plug that in down here, but we do get a Qi wireless charge pad. I'm just never going to be able to use it because I'll have to plug my phone in to do Android Auto anyway. It's nice to have though if you have another passenger who wants to charge down there. As with the other N models, we do get an N dedicated page right here that gives you a bunch of performance readouts and features like a circuit mode that allows you to choose a race circuit like Homestead in Miami, Lime Rock, Road America. Actually, it looks like that's all you get right there. However, it'll recognize that you're on that track and you can do some lap timing there. There's also G-force meter right here. You can go back and do a launch control. You can activate that right there. And then if you have your custom mode for the N mode setup, you can adjust what the variables look like right there. Below that is pretty much the same setup you'll find in the other Elantra models. We have heated front seats that are 3 stages. There's no ventilated seat option at all though, however. And the automatic setting for the climate has 3 levels as well, which I really like. So if you don't want the air blasting at you, you can put it on the level 1 setting. Otherwise, again, we have USB ports down there for Android Auto and USB charging. And then this is your shifter for the 8-speed wet dual clutch. You've also got this parking camera right here, which kind of seems redundant because all it does is pull up the backup camera. There is no 360-degree camera available. So I guess if you're driving along and you want a view of what's going on behind you, you can push that. Otherwise, I don't really see the point. This is how you get through your drive modes that are not the N mode. You can do that also on the steering wheel, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah, this mode is just for your normal sport and eco drive modes. If you haven't already noticed, there's a ton of gloss black in this console area, right around the cup holders, which are going to get scratched up. And as you can see, maybe already, there is quite a bit of scratching happening right here on the edges, and I imagine that only gets worse as time goes on. Then you've got a manual parking brake right here, which is always good to see. And then a very tiny glove compartment. I mean, there's not much you can put in there. If you can see the scale based on the size of that key fob, there's really not too much room in there. It's not super deep or wide. The steering wheel is the exact same design you'll find in the Veloster N and Kona N. However, if you get the automatic, there's this N grin shift red button right here. That is the overboost function. That's 20 seconds of, I believe, 10 more horsepower. I will say in the drive portion, I'll get more into this, but it's not super noticeable, the difference. But anyway, mine does not have that button. Here you have actually the button to turn on or off the rev matching in the manual transmission models. I believe in the Elantra N, that button goes right here because my Veloster N has no adaptive safety features. Here we have lane centering. We've got not adaptive cruise control, but lane keep assist is here, and that is really nice to have. Then you've got paddle shifters back here. They feel pretty good, but they're attached to the wheel, not the column themselves. This is a very quick shifting transmission, and you will actually get quite a bit of engagement out of using these paddles, which I'll get to later. So in the hot hatch segment, and actually I'm gonna rephrase that, in the hot economy car segment here in the US, there are currently 3 sedans on offer. This, the Elantra N, the Volkswagen Jetta GLI, and the Subaru WRX. Now, there's sort of 3 levels, I would say, to describe the performance ability of all the offerings here in the US. At the lower end, we've got Civic Si, Volkswagen Jetta GLI, Volkswagen GTI, and Elantra N line. And then in the middle would be all of Hyundai's N cars, so the Elantra N, Kona N, Veloster N, as well as the Subaru WRX. And then at the very top, we've got Civic Type R, Golf R, and then that upcoming GR Corolla. But in terms of how I would compare this to all of those cars, this is closer to that top rung. And though the GR Corolla and the WRX and the Golf R have the added benefit of all-wheel drive, I actually have to say I think I have more fun driving the front-wheel drive cars in the segment, and especially this Elantra N. Unlike Honda's offerings, Hyundai here gives you 2 excellent transmission choices, a 6-speed manual transmission with auto rev match downshifts, and an 8-speed wet dual-clutch automatic transmission, which they totally developed in-house. And I actually think this is the superior transmission of the 2. It has a very similar feel to Volkswagen's DSG dual-clutch transmission, and I wouldn't be surprised if they benchmarked it when developing this one, because in the same vein, it's very quick to shift, and it's very refined. Honestly, I know some people have mixed reviews about how this operates at lower speeds, but for me personally, in my experience throughout the week, in stop-and-go traffic, it's not like clunky, it's not, you don't feel the engagement points of the clutches. It's very smooth, so I have really no problems with it. The only gripe that I will say is, I don't know if it's turbo lag or just the tuning of the transmission, but when you really push the throttle, give it a good mash, there is a hesitancy at the very beginning, but then once you're accelerating, it is explosive. And luckily for the Elantra N, Subaru WRX now has a CVT transmission for its automatic. So I would say all of the competition that offers automatic transmissions have a leg up over that new WRX. Acceleration is really quite impressive in this car. It's definitely faster than my Veloster N, but do keep in mind that my non-performance package Veloster has 26 fewer horsepower. It doesn't have the limited slip differential, and it doesn't have the larger wheels, and it doesn't have, I think, the same brakes, and I think the turbocharger as well is a little bit smaller. So overall, the performance is going to be better in this car. Plus, my car has the 6-speed manual, and this DSG is going to be faster than that transmission every single time. In my 0 to 60 testing, I was able to hit as low as 5.3 seconds, but I know in better conditions on a flat drag strip or at lower elevation, you can probably hit as close as 5 seconds. That's what Hyundai claims, and that's what I've seen other people do as well. In my opinion, not only is this DSG the best choice because it's the fastest, but it really elevates the overall experience and vibe of this car. I mean, my Veloster N and the manual Elantra Ns that I've had the brief chance of driving, they definitely still feel sophisticated compared to their regular versions, but this DSG just feels like it belongs in a much more expensive car, and therefore it really, like I said, elevates how this car feels. I often forget that it's only $35,000. While I agree that there might be a little bit too much adjustability to all of the variables of the car, the person who's going to buy this is looking for that kind of control. And there's only a few other cars on the market at this price point, actually maybe just one other, that gives you this amount of customizability, and that's going to come from the Volkswagen side of things. So, you know, it's a Jekyll and Hyde situation. If you want to be comfortable, have a very sophisticated feeling sedan that you can haul passengers around in, leave it in normal, eco, or sport. And honestly, eco and normal feel very similar. Sport definitely sharpens throttle response. There's also this N grin shift button right here on the steering wheel. You can only get this on the automatic transmission, but it's basically an overboost function. It gives you 20 seconds of 10 extra horsepower. I will say I don't necessarily notice the difference between non-N grin shift and during N grin shift, but it's nice to have it and the button looks cool. Unfortunately, I still can't give you 60-0 braking performance because I don't have the proper equipment for that yet, but keep in mind that this is a 3,300 pound car, which gets it right in line with Subaru WRX and Volkswagen Jetta GLI, but it's 100 pounds heavier than the GTI and Civic Type R. Hyundai could have put Brembo brakes in this car, but think about the maintenance costs. This is not too expensive of a vehicle, and for those of you who are going to buy something like this and actually track it every day, having to replace Brembos constantly is going to really rack up costs. Whereas these N performance brakes, which are very linear, good, good modulation, they don't feel like they're going to fade too much. You're going to save a lot more money having these brakes. Handling is of course one of the hallmarks of the Hyundai N experience because of, frankly, how two-sided it can be. Leave this in the normal drive modes like normal, eco, and sport, and you'll notice how the independent rear suspension keeps everything in check. Handling is still very sharp. Steering is direct but not overly, heavy or anything like that. It's a very sophisticated experience, but put it in N mode in its most extreme settings, and this becomes a rally car in disguise. In regards to comparing the handling of this Elantra N versus my Veloster N, the differences aren't as night and day as I was expecting them to be, because I thought with this having a longer wheelbase, it might feel a little bit more stable, but really the differences are just so minuscule. I think the fact that this rides on a newer platform than the Veloster N and the Kona N means it definitely feels more tightly screwed together, but they're all equally fun in their own way. But at the end of the day, they all feel like a Hyundai N, and Hyundai N's are very fun to drive no matter what package they come in. Where I do notice more of a difference is in ride quality. Not that the Veloster's ride quality is bad at all. It always surprised me getting back into that car after driving other cars. But this just has a frankly more mature and expensive feel overall. Like I said earlier, I often forget that this costs as little as it does. This car cost $35,000. Mine only cost $28,000 when I got it new. And it's very impressive overall. If you were looking for a hot hatch that had more trunk space than something like the new GR Corolla, then the Veloster N here was a stellar choice. Take it from me. Unfortunately, of course, it is going the way of the dodo, so the legacy will have to be carried on by the Kona N and the Elantra N. The former has a taller ride height, a higher seating position, shorter wheelbase, and apparently a much more bonkers driving experience, at least from what I've heard, while the latter, the Elantra N, which I have adored this week, has a longer wheelbase, sleeker styling, and a more modern and driver-focused cockpit. While I'm sad to see the Veloster N reach the end of its life, it is the car that helped us get to the Elantra N, and with all the upgrades and changes they made to fit in that package, they really did a stellar job. Even with that DCT automatic transmission, the Elantra N is a hoot to drive and feels sometimes like a performance car from a couple of price categories higher. That is, of course, until you start nitpicking on that interior just a little bit. As a manual N-car driver myself, I can totally recommend the manual transmission option for anybody who can row their own gears. Obviously, that is going to be the more engaging choice, but I will not blame you if you get behind the wheel of the DCT and find it to be so good that you just can't resist having it. So I really honestly would have no problem approving your transition over to the dark side, say you were to go with that route. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Hit that like button if you are a fan of affordable sports cars. Hyundai here definitely gets them right. Hit that subscribe button if you want even more detailed car reviews coming your way, and hit the bell icon button if you want to play a little bit of roulette. Who's going to host the next video? Alex, Brian, Alex, Brian. You'll be the first to find out.